Hello and welcome to another episode of Anti-Agency Stories of Doing Business Differently. My name is Jason Yormark. Thank you for listening. I'm really excited about the guests that we have today. I met them through recruiting for my what recently was canceled summit, but I enjoyed our conversation so much that I felt like I just had to have them on the podcast. So here we are. I've got Shelby Dash and Kristina Clifford from Take Two Content. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. So nice to see you again.
Yeah. This is my first interview I've done with two people at the same time. So, yeah.
Well, two for the price of one.
Yeah. I like it. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's, I always like to, when I have guests on, let's just talk about, you guys, give me a little bit of background about both you guys, where you came from and your entrepreneurial journey. Just give us kind of like the whole story, if you will.
Well, there was a lot of twists and turns. We both came out to LA for acting, and that's how we met initially in the comedy acting world. And right off the bat, I thought Shelby was super hilarious and really smart, and I could tell she was motivated because she was right off the bat always wanting to make content and write and do all these things. So I was like, okay, I want this person in my corner. So I kind of was going back and forth between New York and here. So we kind of started making some content, but then I would leave and then I'd come back. But then we were like, okay, this is a good fit. Let's start making these comedy videos and putting them out there. And the first one we did, I remember it got like a crazy amount of views, and we were kind of like, oh, wow, like there's something here. So we did that for several years without making a dime. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic hit and we lost our day jobs, and I randomly got in contact with this ad agency in Sweden, and because we have such a small crew, we started doing these videos for them, and that kind of sparked like, okay, we can do this not only for them, but like expand and find other clients. So that's what we did.
I love it.
I love it. I used to be at Microsoft, and I was like, I got deemed the video guy, and I did like funny stuff because for me that was like, well, part of it was just like, well, if I make an ass out of myself, then if it doesn't work out, whatever. Like, so that was kind of my default. So whether any of it ended up being funny, it remains to be seen, I guess. But but what I am curious about is in terms of comedy, like how did you guys get, like, I mean, did you just kind of grow up being kind of like the funny kids, or like because not a lot of people are uncomfortable with trying to be funny. Like when I think about that now in terms of like, oh, I want to do a video and I want to make it funny. It's like, ooh, like, well, what if it's not funny? So like, I think people have like a fear of like trying to go down that path. So how do you guys do that, and where did it come from?
Yeah, well, I know for me, going back to like being a kid, I always wanted to act. I never thought I was going to be like in comedy. I always thought I wanted to be like a serious actress that like, like would go and like live with the homeless for a role. And like, I wanted to do that. But then when I was in high school, we used to have to make these announcements, like if we had like a show or a dance thing or whatever. And I would always make mine really funny, and people would always laugh and would love when I would do these like announcements for the school or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then when Kristina and I met, we were both studying with like a very well-known acting teacher here who focuses on comedy. So we were both kind of like moving more into that world, and we both also were doing some improv at the same time. So I think that's how we kind of pivoted more into this comedy circle and got really comfortable with being funny, because I think being funny is synonymous with like a lot of failure,
Yeah.
Especially, and especially like with stand-up or something like that, you've really got to be willing to put yourself out there and fail. And once you've done that enough times and you're not afraid of it, then that's, I think, when you really start to
see the magic.
Yeah. And it's that time where like you put yourself out there and it goes really well. People laugh, people share a video, people laugh at your stand-up, whatever it might be. That's so addictive that you just want to do that more and more and more. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I didn't even think I knew I was funny for a lot of my childhood, but like, I just thought that's how life was. Like, you say stuff and people laugh, you know? Like, I don't think I like really connected the dots. Cause I am kind of quirky, like outlandish, goofy kind of gal. But I think once, you know, people start telling you those things, and same thing with Shelby is putting it out there. Like, putting it out there is the first thing. And then, you know, you will probably not get laughs, whether it's stand-up or improv or whatever. But you kind of have to live in that uncomfortability, which is super tough. I'm still figuring out how to do that. But yeah, so it's been a journey.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to being an entrepreneur, like living in that uncomfortability, living in that sense of like you don't know what's going to happen. So
you launched Take Two content. It sounded like you later last year. How has it gone? And I'm curious, is that how you position your guys' self? Like, you're like the go-to for, is it video, or do you kind of position yourself as funny videos, comedy videos? We're the ones for that. Like, you take it a step further in that regard.
Yeah, I think we definitely take it a step further and say that our bread and butter is, you know, branded comedy video.
Okay.
Specifically, we love doing YouTube ads and broadcast for different reasons. I mean, broadcast just gets so many eyeballs, and it's you kind of have some creative freedom there. And with YouTube, you don't have that time limit, and I think clients are more willing to take risks with YouTube ads. So that's kind of like what we love to do. That said, we also do video content for clients that's not funny, that's more just, you know, aesthetic or branded, straightforward. So we work with all different types of clients, but I think we're pushing to get more into our niche, which is comedy.
Gotcha. So I'm curious, in terms of the clients that you've worked with, how often do they get in the way? Like, in terms of the creative process, like, are they just like, hey, do it, we trust you, do your thing? Or are they like, that wasn't really that funny, so can you do this or that? Like, I'm just curious what your experiences have been like.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been like a mix, a big old mix. The guy we worked with who lives in Sweden, the ad agency, he was we would pitch him ideas, and he was kind of like, I love them all. Let's do this one, this one, this one. And he was kind of just letting us take the reins. And I think that's where we really found the love for it, because we like had full creative control essentially. Because at the same time, they're also testing things out and seeing what works with the various videos. So yeah, I think it's been that where we've had full reign, but then also where we really have to stick to the branded guidelines and like pull back here and there, or make sure we're hitting certain points and start, like, for instance, with this cat litter company we work for, there was a lot of that, a little back and forth. So it's a little more like finagling, figuring out how to mix the two together. Like, for instance, they were like, we have to see the cat right away. And we're like, okay, like, we can make that work. Like, little things like that. And then, you know, we're potentially going to be working with someone who there's a bit of a language barrier, and and we kind of pitched all these ideas, and she's kind of wanting to come back with other ideas of her own. So it's kind of, we're trying to figure that out still.
Yeah, I'd say overall, though, we've been really lucky. We do check in with our clients like all along the way to make sure that they're on board with what we're doing. But compared to video jobs, when I've worked with other people in the past or for other video companies, I feel like our clients really do let us have a lot of creative control, which is nice.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what, when you think about the business that you've kind of started, what's like What's been the biggest thing that you've learned up to this point, in terms of what you've experienced, in terms of like what's worked or what hasn't, and how you had to pivot? Like, what's kind of the thing that stands out more than anything?
I think, yeah, that's a good question. I feel like one big thing is kind of to trust yourself. And push yourself and believe in yourself, because when you're first starting a business and you don't have that much, that many clients behind you, you still need to act like you do, and you still need to approach new clients like you really know what you're doing. Because especially for us, I mean, even though this business is technically very new, we've been doing video for 10 years or so, and we have a network of really talented actors, really talented crew members that I think a lot of other production companies that might have been in business for many years, they might not have those special connections that we do. So I think we have certain things that we should be proud of and we should bring to the table. And I think it's the same for new entrepreneurs. Just really trust yourself. Think about what separates you and push that, even if you don't have that wealth of experience or clients or what have you.
Yeah. Right. And along with trusting yourself, I think for us, we struggled with, our pricing and how to go about that, because it's very difficult when it comes to a service, especially a service that includes various ideas that all run the gamut of a budget. So I think we had to really figure out and be comfortable with what we were charging, because, you feel like you want those clients to say yes, but then you also want to make sure you're getting the money that you deserve for the work that you've put in. So I think that's been a little bit of a struggle.
I love that. There's two things that you guys said that really resonate with me. One is it's fear. I wrote this in the book that's coming out next week about that was one of the biggest, I think, revelations for me in starting the business, was how I didn't realize how much fear can kind of handicap you. Like it could really kind of just get in the way of that path working out for you. And I think for me, I figured it out later in life, and I eventually got to the point where and it's probably similar to you. It sounds like, because trust me, I've been fired or laid off plenty of times being a marketer. And I think the last time it happened, I was done. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm done. Cause I was always looking for that stability in my life. Like I need my paycheck. I need the benefits. I got things to take care of. I can't go off and do anything. It's too risky. It's like the unknown. And then it just got to the point where I'm like, I just got so tired of my fate being in the hands of other people. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. Now, luckily for me, I kind of had created a runway and it was kind of already in process, but I'm like, I'm all in. Like I am not working for somebody else ever again. And I went into it and the fear was gone, because it's like, I didn't have much of an option at that point. And because that fear was gone, everything took off, and I didn't get my own, I didn't get my own way. And I don't know if it's just like, fate or whatever, but I'm like, it took off like it never had before. And I'm sure there's a variety of reasons for that, but not being afraid, and then realizing the stability that I was always looking for in my life was the entrepreneurial path, because you control your own fate, and what you put into it, you get out of it. Yeah. And so I can totally relate to that. And as far as the pricing thing goes, such an interesting journey there. You always, the advice I've always given is, most people don't charge enough for what they do. And you should always charge more, and you should always raise your prices. It's okay to say no. It's harder in the beginning.
Exactly.
You kind of take what you can get, but once you kind of get over that hump a little bit, you create a little bit of momentum. You'd be surprised. People will pay more for talent. So I love that.
And then you also have to consider, because we do work with a lot of freelancers, we want to make sure they're taken care of.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, it's not just us.
I think we're finally getting to that point now where we're realizing like, okay, we actually really need to start saying no, because we're getting a little overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Do you guys, so when you create, are you guys always the talent when it comes to what you're doing for clients, or are you pulling other people in?
Not always. I mean, we started out doing that obviously because, we had to keep it tight during the pandemic in terms of amount of people. So we started out that way, and, we trust ourselves obviously within the comedy realm. But more recently, we want to pull from actors in our network, and we have done that as well. So yeah, I think it's more the creative behind the scenes at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want every video to be our face again.
Yeah.
I'm sick of myself, to be honest.
It's funny. Like when I would do the videos at Microsoft, I always felt I ended up because I would write them and I would direct them, and then I'd have to be on camera because most of the people were uncomfortable with it, or they weren't
Yeah.
capable of like delivering like the lines in a way that felt comedic. So, but I'm sure you have access to people that obviously have that type of experience.
Yeah, luckily we do. But I totally know what you mean. That's so funny.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that comes to a good point, like in terms of, when the whole point of this podcast is like talking to people that have unique things or are doing things differently. So that's where I think the comedy thing is so interesting. So obviously not everybody can afford to hire an outfit to kind of do that for them. So what are some tips or strategies or advice that you have for maybe, that solopreneur or somebody that maybe wants to create something funny, but feels a little paralyzed about the idea of putting themselves out there? What tips, like how can somebody set themselves up for success to at least, give that a shot?
Yeah. In terms of comedy?
Yeah. Doing like comedic videos or something that's just funny in general.
I would say we always say to start off with kind of understanding what makes you laugh and understanding your own humor. What are you drawn to when it comes to comedic ads or things you've seen on TV? Like why do you like those things? And kind of really just study it a little bit, I think, first. We always say that a good full brainstorm session is a good way to start. I mean, it's classic. You pour all the ideas you have, write them down. No filter, nothing is dumb, etc., etc. So, and then kind of just circle the ones you resonate the most with and bounce it off some people in your life. That's always good. It's nice that we have this partnership that we can do that. And then, just start really small. Do something on your phone. Do like a story and with whatever theme that you came up with, and don't feel precious about it.
Yeah. Another thing that's really key is really go for the unexpected and try to be vulnerable, because comedy kind of lives in the unexpected and in vulnerability. So, if we see somebody that's sharing something about themselves that maybe they're kind of embarrassed about, if we have that same thing, we're going to feel a connection and we're going to laugh. So, that's a great way to do it. We have a lot of, tropes that we fall back on. One being, making big things small and small things big. So like if, it's the end of the world, then you're upset because your pencil broke. And if your pencil broke, it's the end of the world. Like treating those things like the opposite.
Yeah,
essentially.
like George Costanza about to lick his ice cream cone and it falls and he loses his mind.
Right. Exactly.
Like we think those things are funny because it's unexpected. And within unexpected, there are some other different rules, like the rule of three, like initiation, repetition, and variation. It's like you're setting up a pattern and then you break the pattern and we laugh because it's a surprise. Also, reversals are in the same vein. If you're going 180 miles an hour in one direction and then quickly turn it in the other direction, then that always gets a laugh because it's unexpected. And you see that a lot in comedies and sitcoms and, ads on TV as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different things like that. We also like to have a strong characters with a strong POV. Like, for instance, our cat goddess spokesperson, who is myself, but it's kind of that person who's a little aspirational, like has a very clear vision. Because I think people are attracted to seeing other people know what they want, have a clear vision, have a crisp point of view. Like people like to watch that.
Yeah, and it's aspirational because a lot of us, are afraid to really mean what we say and say what we mean. So when we see a spokesperson that's unabashedly doing that, we're going to be instantly attracted to them. And it's also an easy way to deliver product information and get jokes out.
Yeah.
In a fun way.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'd be crazy not to ask who. I need to know either you could be one or both, like favorite comedy, movie or show and or comedian. I got to know who that is for you guys.
Mine is Talladega Nights. Okay. I love that movie. It kills me.
All right.
Oh my God. There's so many. I can't even.
Somebody's got to jump in your head immediately. Or something.
Is it so dumb to say Dumb and Dumber? It must be so.
No, that's a classic.
I've just watched that movie 1,000 times, and I think I watched it that many times for a reason.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
But yeah, I mean,
what about you? What's yours?
Yeah.
Seinfeld was always. I kind of grew up on that. Recently, there's not a lot of. Nothing really jumps off the page recently. I find Sebastian Maniscalco. He really does it for me lately. He's so great at storytelling, and he just, when he's on stage, it's just his mannerisms, and you just
so physical.
There's such an appreciation because, I've done video and I've done some like stage work earlier in my life, so I kind of get it, like because like you watch it and some people just see it and they just laugh and it's funny and they don't know why.
Yeah,
and I'll watch it and it's funny, and I'm like, oh my God, I can imagine just the amount of preparation that someone like that puts into it. And like all these little things, like I just pick up on, like, I bet you he thought about saying it that way and moving in that way and then pausing for that long. And it's just so interesting to me.
Absolutely. Everything is so structured with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Search Party, if you haven't seen it.
Search Party.
That is
I don't know.
Really good show. We got sucked in.
Buckle your seatbelt. It's so good.
Okay.
Also, I want to give a little shout out to King of Queens.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I want to say that's underrated. Okay. It's underrated.
Okay. I never watched that one, I would say. I saw like clips and parts of it here and there.
Yeah.
But,
First few seasons got me good. That Kevin James, he'll get you.
Awesome. Well, so before we kind of wrap things up, tell me in terms of where can people find you, and tell us a little bit about like who's your perfect client? Like who do you typically work with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say go to take2content.com with the number 2. You can also find us on YouTube. We're going to do some tips and tricks, behind the scenes, bloopers, all that fun stuff. You can also reach us at Shelby at take2content.com and Kristina with a K at take2content.com. And our ideal client, we always say this, is someone who's willing to take risks with their content. Because we really do think that gets the eyeballs. And not when you see a fun, clever, funny ad, I feel like you immediately respect it because...
And the brand.
Yeah, the brand itself. You automatically think, wow, they're innovative. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the number 1, but also somebody who also could, has a budget to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always the key.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, one of the most frustrating things is like you have this conversation, you get so deep and it feels like it's going to be great. And it's like, oh yeah. Okay. So, what's a budget? And you tell them and they're like, oh, I can't like with us, they'll be, oh, I only have a couple $100 to put. I'm like, really? I'm like, we just spent 25 minutes on this. So I've learned a long time ago to just put it out there and like that intro email, like here's our budget range. So if you're listening and you're not doing that, you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches and time by just being transparent about that. So,
amen.
On that note, we do a free 30-minute call if you're interested in working with us.
Yeah. So you gotta
excellent.
But come with your budget. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to come with your budget, but if you listen, maybe you would.
Yeah. Well, it's, I think people, what's interesting about agency life is what makes it a little bit more challenging as a social media agency is like a lot of times a good portion of what we do isn't like necessarily a deliverable. Whereas with what you guys do, it's like you create this thing and it's like, well, here's this thing that you're paying for. You could touch it, see it, feel it.
Yeah.
So, so we experience a little bit of volatility around pricing, but
Right.
trust me, people, when I say there's a lot of horsepower that goes into making videos, period, let alone funny videos. So I have a huge appreciation for that. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was so great to meet you, spend a little bit of time with you. Make sure if you're listening, check them out at Take Two Content. If you're looking for funny stuff, go there. That's a good place to start. Thank you for being on the show and look forward to hopefully staying connected in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd love
Thank you
that.
so much.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening to Anti-Agency Stories of Doing Business Differently. We will catch you next episode.